Well, protests have the power to change the political landscape, and an assistant professor from Princeton is now saying history is proof. Now, this professor studied unrest in the 1960s and says how things change is determined by the way protesters share their message. That assistant professor is Omar Washoe, and he says during his research of the civil rights movement, he found that during the early 60s, the wave of peaceful protests led to public opinion favoring their message and legislation getting passed. But later, protesters became more violent and public opinion shifted again.
What we saw in the 1960s was that you can trigger a kind of backlash movement in which the taste for law and order, a kind of more police-centric narrative comes to the fore, and that's going to make it harder for folks who are trying to push for reform.
Washoe says politicians were able to capitalize on that anxiety like when Nixon won the 1968 election. And while we don't know much of or how much of an impact there may be this year, he also sees a lot of similarities between then and now. He thinks reforms are possible if protesters keep attention on inequalities in the criminal justice system and also state violence.